Let's get more on this. Joining me now is African Affairs analyst Ibrahim Anoba. He joins me virtually from California in the United States. You're welcome to the program today.
Thanks for having me, Joker.
I like your cap today.
Oh, thank you.
Right, so let's begin with your thoughts on the regional bloc ECOWAS resolution to the coup d'etat in Niger Republic.
First of all, I must say this is really an unfortunate situation happening in our region. And it's so deplorable to see that ECOWAS is considering a military intervention at this point. The problem here is that we have a military coup, and it's just not tenable to want to solve it with another military intervention. Also because the country, Niger, is pivotal in the region. So, you know, in northern Nigeria, not only Nigeria, the Chad area and some other part of that region bewildered by Boko Haram, one of the problems we've been dealing with is the influx of small weapons. And guess where those weapons are coming from? Of course, Libya, but through Niger. So if you have a military intervention in Niger and you have civil unrest or firefight between ECOWAS forces and Nigerian forces, guess who's going to benefit? The Boko Haram elements, the ISIS elements in that country. So we really need to think about our actions before we go ahead with this military intervention.
And the ECOWAS chairman, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, has said that no option is taken off the table. Usually he said that, you know, military intervention is the last option if it's necessary to resolve the crisis. Does this perhaps mean, you know, a full-blown war as the Nigerians are, you know, afraid of, or that they've condemned, the people of Niamey were saying, despite the juntas saying that it's not going to restore constitutional power? Is the military action the right way to go, even if it's the last option?
So we see the military junta initiate or inaugurate a 21-person cabinet, which of course consists of both military and civilian elements, with a prime minister. I know the funny thing here is that we've seen this play out before, recently in Sudan, where the state military junta that took power inaugurated a civilian transitional committee, and only for it to remove the prime minister just a while later. So we can see that the Nigerians are trying to do the same thing here. And ECOWAS should not buy that. We should keep pressurizing the military junta to get out of power. But the question we really have to think about here is the overarching interest in Niger. It's a big exporter of uranium. And guess what? France is deeply interested in uranium. Likewise, the US. But also the US has military interest in the region and in the country as well. And of course, we know the advances of Russia through the Wagner Group across the French-speaking West African countries. So what I would advise the ECOWAS leaders is that although we are trying to achieve a resolution to this problem by being a brother's keeper, we should pursue our options as Africans and not being influenced by Europeans like Russians or even Americans. And you see, when Nigeria or even ECOWAS sent envoy to Niger, they weren't pretty much entertained. But when the former emir of Kano went to Niger out of his own volition, he was entertained. What that means is that the Nigerians could be willing to discuss, but not willing to discuss if those discussions are being pushed by France or the US, whom, of course, the junta have said they do not want to have any relationship with.
And we do know that every war, well, most of it, the conflict's political situation ends in diplomatic solution. We know that the situation in Sudan, well, they've been trying to mediate there, and then, you know, the ceasefire fails every now and then. So the diplomacy there has not yet taken hold, but most times diplomacy does you know, come to the rescue of most of these situations. So if the junta, you know, is not yielding to diplomacy just yet, does this mean that they are saying we need more time to do what we say we want to do in Niger? Are they saying open your eyes and see what's going on in our country, that maybe you're not seeing what we're seeing, the reason why we intervened in the government in the first place? Or, you know, what could possibly be the way forward that the junta is begging and, you know, trying to ensure that these other leaders from the bloc see?
So, Joker, this is so complex. And it's so quite unfortunate that we are only seeing this as a case of the military was fed up and they had to seize power from President Bazoum. It's more than that. Uh, you go to Mali, Burkina Faso, and now Niger. These are former colonies of France. And if you follow the politics and history of that region, you will see that there has been some very deep anti-French sentiment fermented throughout the last 1 or 2 decades. And why do you see people coming out in Nigeria? Even students supporting the military. Nobody likes the military, but they like the anti-French attitude. So if we really are serious about helping countries like Nigeria or Mali or Burkina Faso go back to democratic rule, we really need to listen to why the people are having these sentiments in the first place. And I think it also speaks to why the US and France needs to stop meddling with elections in West African countries or Africa generally. President Bazoum was a very big fan of France, and France was a very big supporter of this election. And he has questionable characters, just the same thing as the former leaders in Burkina Faso and Mali. These are people who were brought into power to a large extent by France. France has huge military presence in all of these countries. Africans are tired of having French boots on ground, having French ministers come interfere in our elections. So this speaks to a lot of historical and neo-colonial sentiments that we really need to listen to and not just see this as a military versus civilian problem.
So are you suggesting or saying that in resolving um, the crisis in Niger, as I've pointed out, that maybe there's something that everyone else has failed to see? Do you think the bloc should, look to France to say, okay, so what's going on? What's happening with your relationships with these countries that they have to take over the governments that are, in alliance with them, so to speak? Do you think they should look to, like a country like France, President Macron, to see, look, how can we solve the situation in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger Republic?
So I think that would be a bad move because the problem, as I said earlier, is because people do not like France anymore. France has for many years controlled the economies of these countries. Their money, their central banks were for many years ruled by France. Their democracy were defined by France. Even many of these countries never had universities. Their first university until the 1990s. You have to go to France to go and study.
Sorry,
So
Ibrahim, can I just butt in there? I'm trying to say, like, maybe to say, France, okay, back off a little bit. Maybe you're part of the problem. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So France needs to back off. And that's why I said this negotiation needs to be driven by Africans. Of course, ECOWAS is taking charge. ECOWAS needs to strongly reiterate, speaking the language that the people understand, that we are not coming here to elevate the agenda of France or elevate the agenda of Washington. This is an African agenda. We want peace in our region. And that has to be the central message here.
And finally, let's not forget that, the Niger Republic also has the support of Mali. They have the support of Burkina Faso, whom its delegations have openly expressed their strong support for the military leaders, the new military leaders in the Niger Republic. They've also warned ECOWAS to not use the option of force because they will be supporting Niger in this stance. I mean, you said before that it's not a good thing for the region. What kind of effect do you think this will have on West Africa?
Joker, it's quite unfortunate that at this point we are seeing a fractionalization of ECOWAS into the French section and the English-speaking section. And I think that's really unfortunate because this is at a pivotal point where we have all these numerous trade agreements that will need to come into concert and implement, and also, of course, the joint task force that we're trying to achieve to push out ISIS and Boko Haram effectively. And I think it's going to have dire consequences, even if we do not see, and hopefully not, even if we do not see a face-off, between the so-called Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger faction against the other West African neighbors. Even if that doesn't happen, I think this is going to be detrimental to a lot of the projects we already have on ground. Remember, we're trying to replenish Lake Chad, which is causing huge climatic consequences in that region. We're not going to be able to do that if the countries in that region are not in concert. Also, of course, the militarization and terrorization of that region will be brought back. The JTF cannot achieve its aim if Nigeria cannot speak to Niger. And of course, it's also interesting that you see the leaders in ECOWAS pushing all this agenda. You play before I came on this comment by President Alassane Ouattara of Cote d'Ivoire, him saying that this is a terrorist attack on our democracy. This same ECOWAS Cote d'Ivoire president was just until recently the chairman of ECOWAS, and he went for a third time. And that's one of the reasons why people often respond, the military often respond, when you have a president that go beyond the constitutional limits. And also you have someone like Macky Sall, the former ECOWAS chairman, also about to go for a third time and imprisoning the opposition leader in Senegal. So it's really a matter of African leaders need to look into the mirror and see themselves and correct the problems that oftentimes lead to military intervention.
Right, Ibrahim, thank you for your time today.